Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 130 for the National Land Realty Podcast. I am your host, Mac Christian, and welcome to the show. Before we start here, I want to remind everybody, please follow, subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. That's how we can keep you updated with our great content. Now, let's jump into this. Wild hogs are a problem throughout the United States. And for those of us that don't live in an area with these feral animals, they're a little bit hard to understand their impact. Now, wild hogs affect agriculture, they breed quickly, and they're nearly impossible to eradicate. Today, we're talking with a land real estate agent, Wyatt Brannan, out of our Odessa, Texas office, and we want to get a grasp of this problem. Now, Wyatt has firsthand experience with wild hogs, and we'll discuss their biology, their impact, and the hunting industry that is emerging around them. Now, sit back and enjoy. Okay, I am sitting here with Wyatt Brannan, and Wyatt, you're out of Odessa, Texas office, and you're an agent with National Land Realty. I'm going to stutter my way through this before you even get a chance to talk. Before we get kicked in here, I want to talk about what Wyatt has been through here. This is my Wyatt owns my mistake of the week. I have rescheduled Wyatt. I scheduled him the wrong time. Didn't send him the link. Whenever things go wrong, they go really, really, really wrong. And it did that with it. So you're a very patient individual, and I appreciate your patience on this one. I had to go and screw everything up. So that's always fun. We're here today to talk about feral hogs, and Wyatt has quite a bit of experience with this. And I'm going to leave it to Wyatt to tell that story. So tell me a little bit about your background, what led you to National Land, and sort of let's get into the topic at hand, how you're dealing with feral hogs.
Yeah. No sweat on all the other stuff on the schedule. The point is we got to it and we're here and we're talking. So, I'm working with Wayne Dunson down in Odessa, Texas. I know he's been on this podcast a few times. I'm in Lubbock, Texas, actually here, and that's just north in the Panhandle. And I have a fairly extensive experience with feral hogs since I grew up on a ranch in Central Texas, about an hour north of San Antonio. So that's kind of where a lot of my experience has happened with pigs. And we got them probably. We actually didn't have them when I was a kid. There was no feral hogs. There was no feral hogs on our property. And then they came in around the time I was probably 13 years old or so. And we saw one, and then the population just boomed and exploded from there.
Now, I feel like there's something going on in your area, because when Wayne was on here, he was talking about detouring coyotes. And in the meantime, has been getting bobcats and coyotes, and you've got feral hogs, and you're like, you guys getting invaded over there. It's kind of a thing. It's like a constant combat thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a Texas problem in general. There's a lot of coyotes here. West Texas or Central Texas, wherever you are, it doesn't matter. The same thing goes for pigs. Pretty much anywhere where you've got deer or coyotes, you're also going to have a pretty good chance you're also going to have feral hogs. And yeah, Texas has a pretty massive hog problem. From what I've seen in my research, they're estimating about 2.5 million pigs in Texas.
2.5 million.
Yeah.
I'm in the Northwest. I had never seen a wild. I've got friends that go hunt hogs all the time, and they'll fly down to Texas, or they go to California or whatever, and even in Georgia, I think. I had never seen one until I took a family vacation to Hawaii. So of course I've got to do the hillbilly thing, and I packed my longbow to Hawaii because I read that you can hunt them, and I just had somebody drop me off in the jungle and took a hike. And I got maybe a half mile in, and I just heard this scream, and I watched the brush just exploded. I didn't realize how this is silly. I know a lot of people are around pigs a lot, so I'm really naive on this. I'm walking through the jungle alone with a longbow, and it looked like the landscape exploded. Like, I've never seen something that small, that fast. They're insanely fast, and it spooked it. I want to say it charged me. It didn't. I scared it, and it ran, and I happened to be in the way, and it detoured left on me. But it was one of those, like, I didn't even have time to put an arrow in place and knock it and aim. It was just gone before I could react. They're fast, right? Like, they're
They are definitely a little bit. I'd say they're definitely more agile than people give them credit for. I think you look at a pig and it's like, how can that be athletic at all? But they're definitely a little more agile than people give them credit for. They're a little faster too. I do know though, if you let them run for a longer distance, and you can, they'll slow down. But yeah, they can be a little bit more agile and, I guess, evasive than people give them credit for.
Yeah, I think it was the combination. I walked into an area completely unknown and in thick jungle to where I had about 20 feet to react, and their volume and their speed all at the same time. It was my first experience with, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die standing on a jungle trail. So tell me a little bit about just in general, and for an audience, people around you definitely know the problem, right? So people like me who are completely naive to it, tell me a little bit about hog behavior in your area and sort of what you're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, well, what makes pigs such an issue in general is they can populate very quickly. I would say that's probably more of the issue that we're dealing with, more so than their aggressiveness or their attitude or something. I think they kind of have a reputation out there of being a kind of an aggressive species that might attack you or something. My experience has been they're very similar to almost any animal. It's like you put them in a corner, yeah, they're going to fight, they'll attack, but they're not going to go out of their way, to get you or anything like that. And in your case is a great example. It's like you busted up a bunch of pigs, and I've had the same thing happen to me on a couple of occasions where the group just kind of busts and they don't really know what's going on, and they just kind of, and it looks like one's like charging you, but really they're just trying to get out of there. If they smell you, they don't, they usually know like to get out of there, and they don't want to mess with you. But the population in general is that they breed very quickly. Their cycle is like about 4 months to reproduce. So it's pretty fast, and that's 5 or 6 pigs right there in a litter.
So 5, 6 pigs. They're rabbits basically.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much.
Just larger. They're bacon flavored rabbits.
Yeah, I mean, if that's one way to look at it. Yeah.
So they're in your area. They've infiltrated the area. They breed very fast. Tell me sort of a little bit about the impact that's having on sort of agriculture, ecosystem, fencing, that kind of thing. Sort of what the experience is. And I want to get into like how you handle them in a second, but like tell me about the impact first of all.
Yeah, that's a big one. So from what I've seen, and looking at Texas Parks and Wildlife, kind of what they estimate, I can speak for Texas. I've looked at.
I don't want you to figure out. We don't need to figure out California, Georgia, Alabama, or anything like that. Let's just stick to your. Yeah,
I can speak for Texas. I know some of the estimates, like nationwide, is somewhere around 2 billion in damages or something like that, like estimated damages. In Texas, I've seen some different numbers, 500 million. But if you think about it, Texas has about half the population of the entire hog population of the United States. It's at 2.5 million because they estimate about 5 to 6 million total. I think you could get your damages might be closer to $1 billion a year. Of course, these are kind of rough estimates out there, and that is due to their destructiveness to crops like standing crops, corn, soybeans, basically any kind of crop, especially if it's got something that they're sorghum's another one, some sort of seed in it that they want to. They'll go and they can knock down corn. And then just, to get into the stalks, that's a huge problem for sure. It's with crops, but not all areas in Texas have crops. That fencing damage is another one. Rooting, they're rooters, and so they'll dig under the ground and they'll mess up, pastures. They'll mess up your yard, even like in some situations. They can be definitely hard on native plants. Water systems too is another problem. They like to wallow. They'll get in there and they'll definitely cause more bacteria to get in the water, E. coli and stuff like that. So that's another issue. It's pretty, not to mention the impact they have on the other wildlife, right? Like your native wildlife and livestock as well. They're competing for similar, resources as your deer and sometimes cattle and sheep and goats and different things.
Yeah, and just judging by their sort of their territorial nature, you're looking at push out too, where they're pushing out wild game and populating quickly and pushing things out and then acting aggressively. And then I didn't even think about E. coli in the water system and stuff.
Yes.
So are there any other health concerns besides that? Are they like, and this is just curiosity, are they packing disease, or is what's, E. coli is one I didn't think about though.
Yes, that E. coli is actually probably on the lighter end of things that they can give to it. They can transmit things to people. I'd say the probably more and I guess potentially more impactful thing is what they can do to livestock. Things like trichinosis and brucellosis, swine fever are some of the probably more common things you might see. As far as impact to people, though, you're usually not going to be too much of an issue, but it can be an issue if you've hunted one, you've killed one, and you're gutting it and you're processing it. That's when you need to be more careful. With gloves is not a bad idea if you're going to dig into a hog. They can have a lot of parasites and stuff like that. So
I was going to say trichinosis on its own is enough to scare the pants off of me. That's one where I feel like everybody's familiar with it, but it's one where it's like, yeah, it's a parasite. If it gets anywhere into your system, it embeds itself in your muscle system, and there is no dealing with it ever at all. You have it for life, and it's presents problems for the rest of your life. And you always see it on hunting shows, and like pigs have the reputation from it from back in the day, and people tend to forget about it. You hear about it a lot with bears nowadays. Yep. And especially in Alaska, where it's like 90% of the bear up in Alaska have trichinosis, but you have it. It's for the rest of it will affect you for the rest of your life. And that's just you could get it from cleaning. If you nick yourself while you're cleaning the animal, like you want it, there's a whole slew of things there that is like that one thing terrifies the heck out of me.
Yeah, no, it's a real situation you got to watch out for. And it's usually, when the blood contact, if you nick yourself, you got an open wound, that's how it can happen. And so you just got to be really careful.
Is there, and that's another, and I might be putting you on the spot because I don't know if you know, but is there a significant percentage of the population in Texas that has trichinosis, or is that just a worry that you have to watch out for?
I don't know the answer to that.
Perfect. It's risky throwing that stuff out there, and I don't know it's so hard for people to give an I don't know answer because it's like you don't want to fake that, right? So putting you on the spot on that, don't worry about it.
I would say that there is a potential. I mean, there's a potential for any one of them to have it. So that's why you just be cautious. Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, and it's something I always read about. It's it goes in conjunction. Okay, so this is hearsay. This is where I put myself in hot water. But I had a Forest Service employee telling me that a lot of times it comes to do with contact with human waste that will breed trichinosis that animals like pigs and bear will get. So it depends on the area. And that's why Alaska, a lot of the animals rummage in trash heaps and stuff like that will end up getting it. Let's just say this. I'm not even going to play YouTube professor at this point. I haven't done a deep dive. It doesn't matter to me because I don't hunt bear in Alaska, right? Haven't done it yet. Hopefully coming up. Idaho doesn't have a very big population of animals that have it, so I haven't had to worry about it so far, but it terrifies me.
Yeah, I mean, for good reason.
Oh yeah, no, nobody wants that. So as far as control, like obvious, like they're infesting, they're causing a lot of damage. Actually, you mentioned fencing. That's a significant thing, right? They run through fences pretty regularly, and this is for people that don't know, because I'm sure the people around it know.
Yeah, they can. This is one of those it depends situations. It depends on what kind of fence you have. If it's a kind of for cattle, for instance, like you kind of have a 5-strand barbed wire fence or something like that. Like there's places that they don't purposely like try to mess up your fence, but if they want on the other side of that fence, they're gonna figure out a way to get there, if it's possible for them. So they can easily mess up. They can pop a strand. I'd say I'm more of the net wire fencing is probably where more of the problem is. They'll try to dig underneath it like a high fence or something like that. We got a lot of high fences in Texas. And they'll try to dig underneath it and, make holes, and that's a problem. So yeah, it can be an issue for sure. But it is kind of a depend scenario.
So you got an invasive, strong, tough, sometimes aggressive, quickly breeding animal that will eat everything in sight and dig and charge through things. How do you deal with it? What's some of the methods of controlling, reducing population? And I know one of the answers, because we have whole TV shows dedicated to this, right? Like there's like Hog Hunters National, whatever the show. There's like 3 or 4 of them. Those are pretty obvious solutions. Are there, tell me about that and other solutions.
Yeah. Well, there's, I guess this is kind of another depend scenario too. It's like, well, how bad is your problem? Do you have thousands of acres? Do you have hundreds of acres? Do you have, what is your pig population at? But methods of control, I mean, I think the one that you're kind of getting at is like helicopter gunning. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? Who hasn't seen that at some point? Helicopter, air gunning. Air gunning is honestly a pretty effective way to get rid of some pigs pretty quick. Trapping is another one that's, whether it's a box trap or a drop down trap or a corral type trap. There's several different methods of that. Of course, they're just plain on getting out there with a stick and string or a rifle, or in Texas, you can pretty much use whatever you want for the most part. Semi-auto is really popular, ARs and things like that. There's hog dogs and stuff too out there. I wouldn't say that's a very effective for numbers, but it is a way to definitely take some out. Traditional hunting. There's also poisoning. Actually, that's something that in Texas in particular, I can't speak for other states, but they just this is pretty recently actually let a very specific poison out on the market for hog control. It's called kaput, actually, like KAPUT, kaput. And
that's the scientific name of this poison. I like how that's yeah.
So and that's one that's, I don't know if everybody knows about that one or not. If you're in Texas and you want to check that out, Google it, look at it. It's like one specific brand, and it's very and it comes in, and you have to buy a specific kind of feeder to go with it, so that not any animal can access it, but hogs in particular can get it. Poison.
You're going to have me Googling that after this just to find out what the heck it is. It's very, and it depends on different populations. Like you'll see, there's been people trying to deal with wolves and coyotes, and wolves is a sticky subject in the Northwest, and people will drop their bait balls, right, where it's like a frozen thing of meat with poison in it to try to diminish population in a certain area if it's overabundant. So yeah, it makes sense. You said it was 2 million hogs. It was 1 million or 2 million hogs in Texas.
They're estimating 2 to 2.5 million population.
2 to 2.5 million, which if it's people counting it, it's probably more like 4 million. But yeah. So as far as using these solutions, right? You've got shooting, you've got poison, you've got traps. I feel like wire traps aren't going to be as effective against a hog. I don't think that's probably used all that much. It seems like that's more of a bobcat, raccoon, coyote kind of thing.
I'm not talking about like snares or little traps.
I feel like that would get ripped out of the ground immediately.
No. Well, maybe, I don't know if you could build a strong one. I haven't seen them, but I wouldn't try that myself.
Well, and so as far as those solutions go, how effective have they been? How effective are they? And this is like, personal experience lends to this as well. I mean, as fast as pigs breed, I can imagine it's not a matter of eradicating, it's a matter of managing, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. In most situations, we haven't come across any, which is the reason why we're still talking about this, why it's still an issue. It's like their population continues to grow. And I saw a stat where if you want their population to stay in check, that means to not grow, you need to kill 2/3 of that population, like 66%, 66, 70% of that population. If you just want it to stay as it is, that's the level of eradication that you have to do. And that is extremely difficult to do.
That is like the kill 'em all approach. And that's just to stay at standard, at a level population is 2/3.
Yeah. 2/3 is what the experts, the Texas Parks and Wildlife, that's what I found on an article. I read this big article they had about wild hogs, and they said, 66 to 70% of the population, you're going to have to take that out just to maintain that number. So
it's a resilient animal right there.
Yeah. Well, and let me provide a few more details on their reproduction, because this is why it takes that a level of eradication to just keep them in check. Like you're talking about, as soon as a pig is born, they can be weaned in a matter of a couple of months, like very quickly. It kind of, they grow very rapidly, and then if that's a female pig in that litter, she can breed as early as 6 months. And if it's a male, it's more like a year. But that depends on their growth rate, how big they are. But that's extremely quick. I mean, that is a quick turnaround. And then that sow, once she's bred, it technically is 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days. Let me get that right. 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days is their gestation period. Like that's just under 4 months. That's very quick. And then they can have a litter out and weaned in, a matter of a couple months. And then in a matter of another, couple weeks, she can be ready to breed again. And that's just crazy, reproduction cycle.
That is a quickly growing problem if you're looking. And then the other, and I don't know if you've covered this at all in anything that you've encountered, is it's a domestic pig is one of the few domesticated animals that is fully functional in the wild if they escape. And in 3 generations, meaning they have a litter, that litter has a litter, that litter has a litter. In 3 generations, they become completely feral. And that has to do with, the pink pig that escapes from your farm is a razorback in 3 generations. And it's, cows don't do that. The cow stays a cow, right? Like you let them in the wild, they're going to have babies and they're going to stay. Pigs their whole physiology will change in 3 generations and become a razor. They're just adapted to adapt. Like they're very resilient. They're tough animals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, your little pink, fuzzy, like cute little farm pig. And it doesn't take that long for them to be like take on a whole new coat of fur. Their tusk will grow out. They become feral very, very quickly.
So are populations in Texas increasing or decreasing? Because this sounds like something the whole state is up on. Like I said, I don't know how many hunting shows there are. I have friends that fly down there all the time and go on pig hunts. Like it's not just I need to protect my farm and my crops, because pigs can damage a crop immediately, but it's also an industry. Like people are developing commerce out of this. Has it made a dent?
Well, there definitely is some impact. I'll go back to the Texas Parks and Wildlife article I was reading, and they're estimating that hunters are getting somewhere of a third instead of the needed 2/3 to keep population in check. So no, we're not diminishing their population. Their population is growing. At what rate, I'm not sure. It's hard to say on that. Who really can estimate that completely. And their estimate of how many pigs are actually being killed is probably, who knows exactly, but no, they're definitely still growing. And our my personal experience with our family ranch, our family cattle ranch is testament to that, because we didn't have them. And then at one point, boom, we started seeing a pig here, a pig there, started finding some rootings. And then all of a sudden, I mean, in a matter of just a few years, like they were everywhere, like very quickly, a few years.
Yeah, so we've covered some of the information on, like, on a statewide level, how they're impacting. We've covered, how fast they breed, and I didn't realize that they could breed within 6 months and then another litter within a few weeks. That's bonkers. Tell me some of your personal experience, like what I'm curious about, like, your family on the ranch. What's some of the mistakes that you made, like, as you learn how to deal with pigs?
Yeah, the mistake was not getting into full eradication mode as quickly as possible. That was the main mistake. We didn't know, because at that area, the area of Texas I'm referencing here is the Texas Hill Country, and if you're familiar with Texas, you kind of know where that is, in the middle of the state. And that wasn't part of the state that had been, they expand from certain pockets, and we hadn't had them in that area and around my hometown at all. And so we didn't know what to do, really. But that was the main mistake, is once you see one, that's a bad sign. And yeah, you need to try to get on them quick and get on them as hard as you can.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. Like, I told my one huge experience. Like, I'm so experienced here. Like, my one experience with a wild hog is like going to Hawaii had a longbow with me, and my habit is I was looking for a boar, and the only one that I knew I had a shot at was a mom with like 4 babies with it, and it was like I had the shot. It was right there, and just my instinct from hunting out west is like, if I meat hunt, I don't do the trophy thing much, and I'm not knocking it. I don't do it much. And usually target males, and usually leave, does alone, cows alone, whatever female of the species, usually leave alone. It's just, and it just instinct too. Like, I don't hunt anything with it's illegal. You're right. If anything has babies with it. And so there's this like cognitive thing there. So I see a mom with babies, and it was like, oh, nope. Have a good day, ladies. I'm going to stay. I'm hidden. And talked to a couple locals, and they were like, you idiot. Like, that's how you really, this is what you need to kill the female, because the babies, it's a and they were like, I learned that I couldn't tell people that I passed a shot. But it was, I flew all the way to Hawaii and passed up my shot. And it was the shot that I should have taken. But my instinct was I couldn't do it. And I still don't know that I could, but it is a true eradication problem. You've got to take them all out to deal with the population. And that's yeah.
I was, as soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, that's the opposite. You want to shoot the females, actually. If you're trying to lower the population, you definitely want, and it's just the theory of, like, if you're just shooting males, that one male can breed a lot of different females, but if you take the females out, then what do they have left? They can't go, they can't breed anymore. So that's why that theory is how it is. And it's in a sense of eradication. Like, and that's why a lot of the male species are targeted for other species of animals, because it's like the males can take a bigger dent, and their side of the population versus the females. If you want that population to keep growing, you want to leave those females.
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly, there's a mentality, but I could imagine as an ag owner in an ag family, is you see the first few pigs and you're probably not thinking about it. You're probably thinking along the same lines of like, oh, it's female, I don't know whether to shoot. And then it's where the leisure and the recreation of hunting or a pest or something like that on your land becomes, it's not actually that. You actually have to eradicate a problem. I mean, it takes on the same sort of persona as a disease or an invasive plant that wrecks your crops, because you're talking about your livelihood, you're talking about other people's livelihoods, in that, ag owners produce food that we all eat, and if pigs wreck it, we don't get a sandwich, right? Like that's the whole thing, is because you have to eradicate this animal. It's kind of a crazy problem because they produce so fast. It's just it kind of blows my mind. How did your family go about it? Like, did you start out somewhere and then end up somewhere as far as techniques, or?
Yeah. So we, once we got them, and once the problem became apparent that it was going to be an issue, like a real issue. And I guess for frame of reference, like we raise cattle and we have some horses. So there's not exactly there is some layover, there is some competition between cattle and pigs for food and stuff like that. I think what more of concern is you don't want them transmitting some disease to a cow. But we just started hunting them. First of all, anytime we saw a pig, my dad, he started carrying a gun in his truck at all times for pigs specifically. We started hunting them, and then we built a trap as well, and we started trapping them. Basically what we found was despite our best efforts, as much as I went out there and hunted pigs and shot pigs and tried to make a dent in as many as we trapped, it really just kind of held them back a little bit. It was a short-term solution, I guess I would say. It wasn't really, we still have tons of them. And not a lot has changed, unfortunately. We didn't have the resources to do helicopter flyovers and or build even bigger traps and stuff like that. That can be, if you're an individual landowner, I think trapping is probably your best option. Building a lot, again, I have to build a large trap to where you can capture an entire group of pigs in one go. But even if you do that and you get the whole sounder and you get 20 pigs in the trap and you dispatch them all, there'll be more eventually. It's a short-term solution.
And it doesn't sound like there's really a long-term solution in sight unless the entire state basically arms it. It's how I when you hear stories, I hate comparing it, but like the kangaroo war, it wasn't.
Yeah.
The same concept is like, it's a huge population that like basically the whole state would have to arm itself to deal with on a large scale, which is crazy. It's crazy to even like think about that. Is it something, like you said, in a ranching situation, they could compete for food. If they get aggressive, they could scare horses, and they could deal with like a broken leg or spooked animals or something like that, I'm guessing. Or cows, same thing. Like if it's pushing them around too much, it could stress them out. You could lose babies or calves or something like that. But does it impact? I realize food producing like farms, in your areas, obviously, and but ranching situations like yours, the impact wasn't that great, but I don't know. I'm just curious.
Like as far as the pigs having an impact.
Yeah.
I'd say farmers definitely have it worse. If you have pigs and you're farming some sort of crop that pig wants to consume, that's probably the worst scenario. As far as like more cattle ranching, sheep and goat and stuff like that, the impact is not as great. Honestly, it's still there. And the way I look at it is, you're talking about, obviously you got another, animal that's relying on your ecosystem, that's relying on has to feed off that range that your cattle are on and stuff like that. So, and the studies show, the research shows that a pig will eat about 3 to 5% of its body weight a day. They consume at a high rate. So you've got 100-pound pig, for example, and they're eating, say, 4% of their body weight. That's 4 pounds a day for a whole year. You're over 1,400 pounds of consumption of resources per year off that range. Whatever, it might not be your range, and specifically, but the area that they range, like, so you're talking about a serious impact, and that's And that to me, as far as from a ranching perspective, or if you've got a ranch where you're, it's for hunting, it's for deer hunting, which there's a lot of them in Texas. Yeah, you're obviously your resources are being constrained by that species being there. That has an impact for sure.
So what advice would you have for somebody, and I'm, like somebody moves down to Texas? There's a lot of people moving to Texas right now. What would be your advice for somebody picking up land with the potential of feral hogs?
My advice would be, I mean, for one, like there are solutions and there are things that you can do, to combat them. You have to look at it in terms of what is my goal for this land? What am I going to do with it? You can't be afraid of it. It's like, it's just part of it. But, I think you just probably should ahead of time, if this is something that you're going to be concerned with, you need to look at the area and find out, well, how bad is the hog population in that area? And then, and specifically on your land, on the land you're looking at, are there pigs there? And then, what solutions do you have the means for to be able to deal with that problem? You look at all your options. And if you're in a situation where there aren't wild pigs, but there may be wild pigs in an adjacent area that may be spreading, I would say definitely be prepared. If they do show up, that try to deal with that problem. Try to snuff them out early while their population is smaller. If it's not probably going to solve the whole problem, but it may help some.
Yeah, I don't think that you can produce food in that area and be sort of like I don't think you could be a vegetarian. I think that's the word. I think that's where I'm looking at it. Like you got to be okay with getting your hands dirty on that level because they're not going away.
No, you can't scare them away. Like you can, I guess, but they're just going to come back. Right. You can try other peaceful means or methods, but anybody who's dealt with them in Texas or anywhere where there's pigs, you realize, you gotta if you want to address that issue, you gotta drop the hammer on them pretty hard. But there is another way to look at this, and it's just kind of maybe a less popular way to look at it. But hogs do provide some value as far as a hunting resource. Like there's lots of private ranches in Texas, and I'm sure all over the place, where they have hunters come in and pay to hunt them. And like you were talking about, like
I just mentioned several of my friends go to Texas just to do. It's like it's so funny because your problem is like it's fun for other people to go engage in. Yeah. It's like there's an income source there. There's a revenue stream as well.
Exactly. So that's the other side of the coin is they can provide a revenue stream. And actually you can sell them. You can sell wild hogs. You're not going to make much money, but if you can trap them live and bring them, there's hog buyers in Texas where you can go sell them. There's definitely a market. There's definitely quite a big market for hunters coming in, and especially from other states or within the state and from the city or whatever, and coming out and shooting hogs. So maybe if you're looking at coming to Texas and buying some ranch land and there's hogs there, it's like, well, that's one way to look at it too. I can make some money off them. Yeah,
you can make some lemonade out of that lemon.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, Wyatt, tell me a little bit about, you're over there with Wayne Dunson, which is great. I think, are you the only agent working with Wayne?
Yes.
That's right. So, because Wayne works in the area. I know the area well now, because you're right. He's been on the podcast several times now. Tell me a little bit about the land that you work with, about some of the work that you do in Texas, and sort of how to get a hold of you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Wayne and I are out here in West Texas. So the land out here is, if you're familiar with Texas, it's not the most desired part of Texas per se, as far as aesthetics go, but great farmland out here.
It's dry land. Yeah, you guys.
Dry land. Yeah. Lots of cotton farming, but there is also a lot of kind of canyon land, if you will, where the what's called the I don't know what term to describe it, what most people would know it as, but basically where the ground, transitions from being rough and rugged to flat farmland here on the Cap Rock, I suppose is probably what most people know it as. There's a lot of opportunity in there and ranch land and stuff that has great hunting, great for cattle ranching. So it is a really productive part of the state for cattle. And people sleep on it for hunting too. It's great. There's great whitetail hunting in places, mule deer hunting, even some pronghorn antelope, a few of those out here. So it's definitely a unique part of the state. And there's definitely a lot of opportunity if you're ever interested or looking at West Texas.
Yeah, I see Wayne's trail cam quite a bit, and it ticks me off. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. No, there's great hunting out there. Excellent. So, Wyatt, thank you for the information. Thanks for going through this, and thanks for sitting down today. I appreciate it, man.
Yes, it's awesome to be on the podcast, and hope somebody learned something or found this interesting in some way. So it was fun.
I believe so, dude. Thank you. This concludes episode number 130 for the National Land Realty Podcast, discussing the impact of wild hogs with Texas land real estate agent Wyatt Brannan. You can learn more about land ownership and the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com. And remember, subscribe to this podcast.